Hi, Emma, and welcome to this week's episode. How are you?
Well, I'm really good, but let me know how you are right now, Karina.
Yeah, my voice is a bit funny today, but it's lower, huskier tones, and I've got a bit of a thing going on with my nose and sinuses. But hey, we're in the season, so
Yeah,
and I wanted to, we've got a particularly important topic to
we do.
discuss this week. So, I thought, right, I'll literally suck up my throat lozenges and move forward. So here we are. So announce our topic. What are we working on, Emma?
Well, it is a big one. This week we have a question, and it is: my boss is a narcissist. What do I do?
Ooh, that's a biggie. Ooh, and a big topic and a really important topic. So how about we start with some definitions of narcissistic behaviors, then move on to some of our experiences and then some practical actions that people can
Absolutely.
take to make this a good work story. Yeah.
Sounds good.
So take it away.
Cool. Well, there's a quote I like from Dr. Ramani Durvasula, who you can find on, she's done a TED talk. You can find her if you Google her. So the quote is, I often say there are 4 pillars to narcissism: lack of empathy, grandiosity, a chronic sense of entitlement, and a chronic need to seek out admiration and validation. So those create the core of the disorder.
Yeah, I recognize and resonate from my experience with a lot of those. How did this show up in your experience, Emma?
Yeah, well, when I heard this question, it reminded me that I have had the experience with a boss who had narcissistic behavior. I mean, in fact, the whole team suffered from this guy's behavior, narcissistic behavior. My experience was putting people down, taking credit for our individual or our team's work to make himself look good, inflating his achievements and capability, definitely the lacking in empathy for others, including his own family. That was the one that really shocked me. And, everyone was fed up and the stress was high in this team. But because he took all our good work as his own, he shone to the CEO. And, who didn't, they didn't really see the belittling and the outright abuse that was going on in the background. And, I think a good example of how this plays out, it was one year he had an extremely bad, we were actually all suffering really badly. It was obviously we'd come to a bit of a point, and we had our 360-degree feedback, for which he got a terrible report. And, whenever, those of us who've been 360 degrees, sometimes it doesn't play out the way we want it. But when it happens, it's usually a wake-up call. Well, for me, it was a wake-up call to take a look at myself and, how I'm behaving, and obviously how that behavior is affecting others. It's humbling, right? But it provides opportunity for learning and growth, even if it's a bitter pill to swallow. But however, in this case, the guy took his direct reports, of which I was one of them, into a meeting room and attacked us like a bunch of naughty children. And then he left the room telling us, it was our problem and we needed to sort it out. Needless to say, actually, many of us left. We felt like we had no option. The personal grievance cases continue to be filed, and it must have cost the organisation so much money paying out the wounded and hushing them up. So pretty bad.
Oh my God. Yep. Well, I can connect to some of those experiences as well, and I think some of the kind of characteristic behaviours that you've already that you've mentioned, like that requiring excessive levels of loyalty, praise, and adoration, but struggling to commend other people's achievements. I can recall a particular individual who I never heard say sorry, never.
Yeah.
And why would that person?
No.
Because from their perspective, they know it all. They do everything right.
Yeah. And they would show weakness even if they thought to do it. So you don't.
Exactly. There's no need ever to say those words, right? And that can be very interesting. And that what you've described, the unwillingness to take on feedback and in
Yeah.
any way to be challenged,
Yeah.
can result in some very unpleasant, reactions.
Mm.
The inability to regulate your emotions, right? As one of those things like shouting at people, or,
Mm.
the other one I've come across is the complete entitlement for them to express their emotions in any way they like,
Mm.
regardless of the ripple on other people. So, you start walking on eggshells. You don't know what's going to happen in a meeting. It's a bit like the, Jekyll and Hyde
Oh, horrible.
analogy of,
Totally.
who the hell is going to turn up? On
Yep.
one level can be very charismatic,
Yep.
very productive, very, an attractive kind of, visionary, let's get on and do some amazing things. But on the other side, and my experience is very much like that with clients, but behind the scenes, a nightmare. Some of the stuff that
Mm.
you've described. So, what are some of the other behaviours that we see around the stuff? So, I'm just thinking, like, the caring piece is interesting, right? Because with
Mm.
narcissistic behaviour, there's this thing called cognitive empathy, which is kind of
Mm.
like, a bit of an ironic statement, but it's the form of, the cognitive, or the pretense to empathize, is
Mm.
really to manipulate other people's feelings.
Yes.
So it's pretense,
Yeah.
but really when it comes down, they have very, very little interest in anyone else's feelings.
Yeah.
And if you show that, the vulnerability is that will be used against you. What else we have? The know-it-all. I think we've talked about that. The bossy, competitive attitude.
Mm.
Being
Mm.
superior.
Mm.
Deliberately will create conflict and believe that the rules don't apply to them.
Yes.
That they are special and above things that you and I and other people.
Yeah.
And no, like, not a second thought about using fear or guilt or shame or punishment to manipulate and to gain compliance and control of
Totally.
people.
Yep.
Right? I mean, yeah. What else have you seen?
Public humiliation is acceptable. No trouble.
Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think, ensuring, this power players, this high status, watch out for this, because they're definitely pushing themselves up and out there into the world as, like, way inflated, way beyond their own actual abilities. That self-image, that really making sure that they look good constantly, and the reputation is really important to them. And this guy that I'm talking about actually told me that he has a much better car than our CEO, and that was really important to him. It's a status symbol, and he was like quite, inflated and puffed up about the fact, wow, I've got such a better car. It's like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely making decisions unilaterally without involving others. I mean, there's no team, low collaboration, low team. And I think you put it, heard you talk about this, not wanting to actually disappear into a team. I is really important. So they will definitely, make decisions. Gaslighting, definitely engaging in that for sure. Lack of congruence to what is said and the behaviour, which is in private, eats away, at my self-esteem. Have I done enough? I became hyper vigilant. Am I smart enough? Are my performance reviews, in my performance and my KPIs, I basically spent an inordinate amount of time ensuring my KPIs were measurable, very, very measurable. They could not be debated or discussed at a performance review, because those were opportunities to take me down. And I was a high performer, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to be completely taken out. Tough.
Oh my God. And just like, we just pause on that piece that, you're talking about, Emma, and then you look at all those behaviors before. What the frig?
Yeah.
Like, this is like, people, in goodwill and good faith spend a lot of time and a lot of money building cultures where they want high performance. And every single one of these behaviors that we've just gone through, we know has a negative impact. In fact, it
Absolutely.
actively destroys this.
Yes.
And this is not, and when we're talking here, it's a blend of experience, and I want anyone listening here really trust your own experience, right? Because if you've
Yes.
been in the situation, the gaslighting that you've just talked about, Emma, you will self-doubt. That's all part of the process. Like, you doubt, like, is that real? Is it worth me saying anything about? It's
Yeah.
all part of the process, right? So trust yourself, trust, what you're feeling. And the research also backs you up, right? The collateral damage of narcissistic behaviors and cultures is absolutely toxic, abusive. As you said, like, people will leave. It breaks down trust. It breaks down safety. Without no safety, there is no trust. Trust is absolutely required for collaboration and for performance. So when you start to eat, and this literally eats and sucks away at the foundation of good stuff, I mean, you've got this, this trauma, this disaster, sitting here. And I think the other thing I'd kind of add before we move on to the good stuff, I mean, how to make it good, is the real awareness around the impact of chronic stress on us. And I think we've all become a lot more aware of it. I know you and I talk about it, Emma, a lot on our episodes. But this level of chronic cortisol in your body, like, you don't know what's going to happen. You're hypervigilant was the word that you used, right? We're always in this flight, fright, or freeze, scenario. And, the impact of that on long term, on chronic disease, on our health. And I think you and I were both listening to a podcast recently by Dr. Sarah Gottfried, who was talking about the impact on hormones. And she was just saying that it's absolutely impossible, and she used that word deliberately, impossible, to balance your hormones in an environment where you're living or working with a narcissist because of the stress. And when you think about that for premenopause, peri, post, and menopause woman, that is a cocktail that does not help us, impacting our sleep, our mood, our memory, our confidence. When all of this stuff is going on for this, and then on top of this, we are working in a hostile environment. And so a shout out for that too, which ultimately made me make some big decisions in my life. So how do we make this story good? So maybe we start with what you did, Emma, in the situation that you were in. And would you do anything differently? Did you take some learnings from it?
Yeah, definitely. And I just wanted to quickly make a comment that the behaviour is more prevalent in men than it is in women. So, so I think that's probably also a balancing issue for us to learn. For me, I did leave the job, and I left the job that I loved. And it wasn't impossible to work in this environment, and my health and well-being were definitely negatively affected. So some things I learned and some advice I received post, which I really want to share, because I think if I'd had this, maybe I could have hung in, but who knows. Don't engage with a narcissist, because you will give them the fuel to treat you like you're the crazy one. And this definitely happened to me. They feed off your feedback, and it comes back at you as an attack to take you down. They want to win at all costs. I'm a highly collaborative person. I love to work with others, and I love to think that we can improve our relationships of working together. I falsely thought this was a good strategy in this environment. Definitely not. So something that I would now do and advise people is manage your expectations and boundaries. If possible, I talk about this. So, they'll run over you otherwise. You will become their servant. You will become, beaten down. Telling a narcissist not to yell at you in front of your team is a kind of example. Don't lose your cool. Be the grounded person. I had an experience where, this person was going off at a team member and I about something, on and on and on, ranting literally. I did put my hand up and ask for time out, because I said I think we all need some time to recover, and because it was just pointless. It was just pointless ranting, and it was okay. Actually, he did take that one on, but yeah, that could also blow up on you. So, this one's important. Don't use the word narcissist. or narcissistic behavior, to be honest, to the narcissist, unless you are a qualified therapist and you're in a one-to-one consultation. It's a red rag to a bull. In fact, don't label anybody anything to their face generally. It's not a good sign. But, they'll make your life even more miserable if you are labeling them that way. Find a way, and they'll find a way to ruin you. And that's what happened to me. This is something that I did, and I still think it's important. But look at things from a compassionate perspective. This behavior is showing up because the person is broken and deeply sensitive. Even if they don't recognize it, holding some space for that care and compassion is still important. Ultimately, look for another job, or it's better for you, or move out of the ask for a transfer to a different department. You can't win, and you can't change them. So know these things are important. And if you stay, protect yourself. That's asking for a transfer, but also do what I did, which was be very clear in your KPIs, so that you can continue to have that sense of achievement, and manage your self-worth. Protect yourself with others, care around you in the organisation, and beyond.
Yeah, I love the exit and protection, strategies you've got here, and I think another one that comes up for me to add to that list is the compassion for yourself. For whatever reason you are where you are, right? And now is present time, and and in that present time there may be some decisions that you prioritize, like it could be the end of a project, or maybe it's a countdown to collecting a bonus. These are choices that you make, and back yourself on those. And I think another little suggestion, a practical suggestion around the protect is, look at a no contact or a minimum contact strategy. And if you have to be in contact, like, you go to a team meeting, for example, and, and under the quote unquote pretense of, collaboration, this leader may still be doing some form of checking in, or, the wanting to share, open up your Johari window, which is a fantastic tool. Both you and I use that, Emma, around, getting to know each other more, but be really clear. Keep it general, keep it short, and nothing vulnerable, because as you've said, Emma, it will come back to be used against you. And, do it quick and put the focus back on them, and they'll love it anyway, because, they're the special ones. They'll suck up that attention and validation. So, it's just like pass the attention back. And, and as always, be aware of whatever process that you're working with, documentation, be very clear on the purpose of meetings. Don't be in the situation if you can avoid it, being alone. All that, all that kind of good process stuff that you can get involved with, and, support from an HR person in your organization. Anything else coming up? Yeah,
I think diarise those conversations that you're having.
Nice.
Just to, again, it's protection for you, and it also helps you not to go insane, because when it comes back at you on this date, I said that, and I did
really
happen. Yeah. Sadly.
Yeah. It's like, we both have a different view of the truth. Your truth and my truth. Yeah, I mean, I know, it's crazy. And I think the other comment I'd like to make is just around a cultural perspective from organizations. And when I say this, please keep in mind, that there will be, the legal aspects of a safe workplace in your particular state or country, that you also, can be aware of. But if you're working for what we would call an autocratic organization, which is maybe it's, a startup or a privately held organization, where everything, basically the rules and procedures and processes and everything revolve around the distinct preferences of the leader, and that leader is demonstrating these, narcissistic behaviors, then that is the culture of the place. So really, if you're in that situation, you need to exit and protect. Now, and be self-compassionate, right? You know, for some reason that was working for you. You ended up there, you worked there, it's no longer working for you, it's now unhealthy. Make a choice, do what's important for you, right? And you know, and that takes some courage, as we've talked about. However, if you are working for another type of organization, right, that explicitly has a culture and that has, you know, that is deliberately about, is committed to collaboration and creating high performing teams. And it prides itself on living its values and having, you know, healthy, supportive, empowering behaviors, then that is what you can lean up against, right? And, you know, like literally that is your reference point, because it's not about, you know, a personal preference, right? It's actually, which you're quite entitled to, by the way, because that's your choice. But in this case, you can actually really say, hang on, you know, this is what we signed up to do collectively, and this is not what is being exhibited or role modeled or valued by this particular leader. Follow the process. You know, this is probably where 360 feedback gets involved. Follow the process, get the support, escalate, you know, follow whatever processes that you have, you know, and then some short-term solutions may include, you know, moving you to another team, another project, maybe, well, ideally, you know, this leader's responsibilities would be removed from him or her until, you know, some coaching and decision exploration was made, but ultimately, you know, get the process started. And then the other piece, to finish up from my side, would be around having a recovery strategy, right? So we talked about the exit strategy and a protect strategy.
Yeah.
But this is about your recovery strategy. And I want to break this into two areas, one for you and one for the business. The first one, and I'll be curious to see what you did, Emma, too, for your recovery, was, you know, and Emma and I've talked about, you know, we've talked about this a lot around taking care of yourself. Like, you need to double down on your self-care practices. The stresses in your body, your mental health, you know, what are you doing around your sleep, your nutrition, your movement, time in nature, social connections? You know, is counseling with a specialist available to you? You know, this for some people is trauma, right? Is taken on as a trauma in the workplace.
Absolutely.
You know, like reflecting and reconnecting, like how, you know, how did this all come about? And you know, doing that with some self-care and compassion as well. Like, what can I learn from this experience? You know, where did I kind of give my power away? Or, you know, what do I need to forgive in myself and the other person around this, right? So that can be quite an interesting process. Did you do any of this, Emma, or what was your
totally.
kind of,
Look, I mean, you know, in a way, I look at this as an experience, a gift of, you know, self-discovery and self-worth. I did turn it around as a learning experience, and it led me to do the work that we do together, Karina, which is more about, you know, stopping the suffering in the workplace. There's so many reasons it happens, but this is one of them. And so, yeah, I suppose that it fueled up a passion to help others and to continue this work. So, yeah, and definitely I did need a lot of time to recover, and I'm lucky to have had such good people around me as yourself and you know, family and friends to support me through it. But yeah, it took some time to recover from. Totally.
Yeah. And it's kind of like going through a detox process,
Absolutely.
You know, for yourself. Yeah. And the other recovery protocol or, you know, kind of thing I would look at is to the organization, right? Because these people end up in these positions of power somehow, you know, like they don't just like magically just, you know, click my fingers and hey, they're there. It's like, what are we learning here from, or what is, you know, like, this is the silver lining. Like you said, it's a gift. And it's a gift to look at your organization and go, how the frig did this happen? And compassionately, what can we learn from this, right? You know, and really understanding that this is serious. You know, it creates, you know, we talked about like all this destroying and damaging, you know, psychological safety. Well, this is psychological danger. What it does and the impacts on individuals and teams is horrific. And performance.
Yes.
So, so reviewing your system, how do we recruit people? How do we
Yeah.
reward people? What is the feedback process?
Yeah.
The retention, etc., all of that good stuff. And then I would challenge you to say, look, what other abusive behaviors are being tolerated here? What can we take responsibility for? What do we need to change? How did we collude or enable these behaviors that erode trust and social cohesion in our organization? Did we just brush it off? That person's getting some great results. They're getting, stuff done, or, and we looked the other way, and then bring
Yep.
it back, your duty of care to, your purpose, your vision, the people, mental and physical well-being, and what you really, really stand for as a leader, as a CEO, and as an organization. So, I think it's a fantastic opportunity to reflect on your core, who you are. Anything else, Emma, you'd like to add to anything we've said here before we sign
No,
off?
I think really it is such a big issue, and because it is so highly emotive and abusive, as you say, and I think if this is sparking anything for anyone, do speak up, do get some support, and definitely reach out to us if there is anything. Well, we certainly know we can help you from a personal coaching perspective or from an organisational perspective. This is the work we do.
Yeah, we love, and these are big questions,
Yeah.
and we need to look at it with as we keep saying that word, compassion, non-judgmental support. And if you have a friend who's going through through this experience, please share this episode with them. So on that note, be safe, build safety, take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
all that reverse stuff that we know and
Yes.
believe in. So
Totally.
and as there's life's too short to have suffering at work. So
absolutely. Let's make this a bad work story good.
Exactly. See you all next week. Bye for now.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Bad Work Stories Made Good with Emma and Karina. We hope you enjoyed this episode and that the perspectives we've shared stimulate your thinking and are a catalyst for your own reflections and actions. If you have a bad work story you would like to share, get in touch at help@badworkstoriesmadegood.com. And if you enjoyed or have some feedback, please leave a review. We appreciate it.